next team in this rivalry to win a national championship. I think right now, Michigan's closer. I mean, just in terms of not just the current.
Wow, really? Okay.
It's not just in terms of the current roster, but the momentum of the program. You have a coach that's sort of on the come. Our coach, I don't know if he's awake. I don't know what's going on. Like there was no credible good program in the country that needed to hit the transfer portal as much, certainly not more than Michigan State, and no team that's done less with it. I don't know what's going on up there. There's theories out there from Odell Bredham Jr. that Izzo's deliberately sticking it to the fans that are mad at him. When like the biggest super fan in the fan base is saying, I think Izzo's trying to get back at us, things aren't going well. So just based on that alone, I don't see it. Michigan, we all know college basketball could change in 6 months with 1 or 2 recruits and everything changes. But if I had the pick and my kids' lives are on the line or something, not to go too far, I'd take Michigan with a gun to the heads of my family. Like I would take Michigan. I like kind of their juju a little bit more. I don't know what we're doing in East Lansing, but we'll kind of do the draft order in reverse. Anthony, who gets to the finish line, even if it's in 50 years, who's next?
There's something that tells me there is one magical run left in Tom Izzo. I think that's there somewhere, just because the universe works in mysterious yet sometimes predictable ways. A lot of work to do with that roster, obviously, but the way I feel it's Michigan right now, just because I think they're recruiting a little bit better. There's a willingness to hit the transfer portal. I think there's a shot even this offseason still that they could get like a Pete Nance or an Emmanuel Acott or someone of that ilk to add to the roster, and maybe things get interesting next season. They've done better getting like the 5-star one and done guys, but similar to Michigan State as of late, have just had trouble landing that difference maker. Like though the best 2 recruits of the last 15 years, or probably even longer for Michigan basketball, are probably either not going to get drafted or be parked somewhere in the G League. So I lean Michigan just because I think that they're there's a lot of brand power there on the recruiting trail. I think that Juwan Howard, as long as he's got a staff of Phil Martelli and Saudi Washington and recruiting moderately well like they have, Dickinson so far is his biggest, the biggest piece of the puzzle. We'll see how many years he has left in him. But I lean Howard, but given the fact that it's been, now it's 22 years since the Big Ten has won a national title, the realist in me says that it's probably going to be a wash, and that neither of these teams will in the in the near or the long-term future. But we'll see. If we're looking at the team that's maybe better equipped to do that right now, I think it's Michigan. But I still there is somewhere before it's all said and done, I do think that Izzo will have one more shot at this.
I hope so, because Oakland University is hitting the portal harder than we are. Chris, to you. Like literally, by the way, literally. But go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
It's a tough one, man. I think Final Four Michigan State has a better chance, but ceiling wise, I think as of 2 years ago, Juwan Howard had a team capable of winning a national championship, and I think they got popped and choked in the Elite Eight, but I think that roster wise, that team had it.
If Livers doesn't get injured, that's a different team. It's completely different.
Exactly. And look, last year, despite the Sweet 16 appearance, disappointing. He salvaged it in the tournament, but it's not like Juwan's all of a sudden fallen off on the recruiting trail. So I think if we're talking natty, I'm still going Michigan for that, but I'm not. I'll always believe Izzo has another Final Four run left in him. That's my pick right now.
This is a great question. I'm going to pose a couple questions back to you guys and just try to get your feel on it one way or the other. I'll say this. Howard has done a nice job on the recruiting trail. There's no doubt of that. But the actual fruit that it's yielded hasn't exactly worked out yet. And I think that he's still trying to figure out how to build the roster construction. I think that, his first season, he had some leftover pieces, and that obviously wasn't a great season. They had a great year too. To me, I get that they made a Sweet 16, but for me, that really doesn't erase what occurred during the course of the season. Yep. I think that they probably had a top maybe 2 talented team in the Big Ten. They finished 8th.
Yeah.
Like that was kind of a disappointing year. You look at the way that the roster's constructed this year. They went out and got Llewellyn, I know, from Princeton, but that's still maybe a bit of a shaky proposition. What are you getting out of him? Is he Devontae Jones or is he Mike Smith? You know, I'm not sure what you're going to get there. You've had some carryover, and I think Dickinson covers up a lot of the warts. I think Jet Howard is going to be a stud, but the 2 from 4 and even maybe the 1 through 4 positions, that's shaky. Who's your starting 2 right now? Kobe Buffkin? You're going to land Joey Baker, who hasn't really played. He's coming off a hip surgery. Jet Howard's probably your 3. I like Terrence Williams, but is he like an all-conference type guy? No. So I think there's a lot of question marks for the roster next year. I think that this is probably maybe the worst team Dickinson has played with, and it's kind of progressively kind of gone that way a little bit for him. And yes, it matters to hit on some of these recruits and to have these top 10 classes. He needs to develop the guys that he has. There's been a bit of roster turnover with it. He continues to have to pluck point guards, and it hasn't always 100% worked out. So I think that the formula and the way that he's doing it, I don't know if he's quite 100% got it. There's got to be a mix of guys you've developed, guys that you get in the transfer, and guys you hit that are one and dones, and he hasn't been able to do that yet. We'll see kind of how it goes. I will say this for Michigan State. This has been a disappointing offseason. I think we'll all agree with that. I like the talent on the roster, but if they would have bolstered it in a couple spots, we would have been in much better shape and feeling much better about it. The way that 2023 is going, they've hit the recruiting trail extremely hard. If they land a class of Jeremy Fears, Xavier Booker, and Devin Royal, which is not completely a pie in the sky, it's a potential possibility. With the guard play that they bring back, and if you can maybe retain a guy like Malik Hall on the wing, you know, for a 5th season, you get a guy to come back. To me, next year's Michigan State roster could potentially be contender worthy. I think Xavier Booker is that good, and he kind of fills in a need that's not otherwise on the roster with what they have. So it's interesting to see how it goes. I think a lot of it depends for Izzo's next, couple of years that he has, is how does he hit the next 2 classes? Because we've seen his reluctance to hit the portal. If he doesn't hit the high school kids that he's recruiting, I just think this is maybe one of the biggest off seasons that the program has really ever dealt with. And the way that this recruiting class goes is really going to dictate whether Michigan State's capable of getting back to a Final Four and beyond. And that's kind of where I leave it. So I would lean more towards Michigan. But again, is Howard going to stick it through? I think Jet Howard, his younger son, is probably a 2 and done at best. Jace will basically be graduated in 2 years. He's going to have the NBA calling. At what point does the money come into play and both his kids are there, and maybe he has an opportunity to coach them at the next level at Jet or something. So I just think that it's no guarantee that Howard's here for the next 10 years. So either way you look at it, I think it's very interesting time to be part of both programs for sure.